Philadelphia is considering opening a site where drug users can go to legally use drugs. They would be monitored by medical professionals who would administer anti-overdose medication as needed. Medical professionals, how would you feel about having this job? They tried to do this in my city, but no one wanted one in their neighborhood, or near their kids' schools, or near where they worked, etc. I live in Oregon, and the city council decided that the best way to deal with drug addiction in public urination was to put up street lights in all of the alleys and dimly lit roads. Now we can see the discarded needles on the ground and the stains on the sides of buildings where people have peed. The people in power do not listen to the people in a public health setting to solve problems if the general population is not willing to listen and understand the reasoning behind their actions. Edit. Thanks for all of the upvotes. I would like to state that my highest rated comment is about people peeing on the side of buildings in downtown. My wife proud I can see it now. You spend how much on a college education and talk about your chosen field on the internet, and no one ever looks at your blog. You make one off-the-cuff comment about people peeing on the wall and it gets tons of attention. Back when I was a teacher at a poor neighborhood, the city did the same thing to reduce drug deals and violence. Apparently, their belief was crime was a thing that happened at night, that no one in their right mind would commit crimes if there was light. I once took the kids out to get tree leaves for a art collage. I had to take them back, and when the kids were throwing bullet shells at each other. It's because it's a well-known city planning thing that streetlights statistically reduce instances of crime and violence. Which is true. So therefore your politicians assume that with enough light crime will go away entirely. Which is of course ridiculous, but they have no idea what the actual data is and why streetlights are only one strategy that works up to a point. That sounds like how I play SimCity and Tropico. Oh, this area has crime, 50 police stations. An area can't have crime if everyone who lives there is a police officer. Edit. Reddit's vehement anti-police attitude has once again reminded me I need to include the S. Tell that to Brazil. I'll never forget you, rural juror. I'll always be glad I met you, rural juror. These were the best days of my flirm. Dude, I got an Narcan people in a park. I'd much rather do it in a clinical setting where they know I'm gonna do it, so they're less likely to try and punch my lights out for ducking their high up. I'm just picturing you wandering around a nice suburban park randomly sneaking up to people to give them Narcan. Dun none of anonymous bond, paramedic bond. Serious question. What would happen to a person if they were given Narcan when they aren't overdosing? Also, Narcan. To the tune of the Batman theme. A fake naloxone just binds to your opiate receptors instead of what was just on there. So it kills the high and people get mad because they can't use for like a day afterwards. Naloxone is safe to administer even without a complete overdose. Please correct me if I'm wrong about that. Edit. Reply below me states that naloxone half-life is quite short, so addicts can usually use within hours. Maybe I'm thinking of naltrexone like someone said? Opioids aren't a problem in my area of the US, so I've never had to administer anyone anything, thankfully. Edit 2. Many people are telling me it doesn't just kill a high, it induces terrible withdrawals. Still better than overdosing and dying. But it seems I downplayed it when I first described it. My fault. Hey, only one way to find out. Head to the park in your tuxedo and find a volunteer victim. Or fake passing out in a park and wait till your R2C2 sneaks up to you and gives you Narcan. Ninja roll to Narcan is my signature move, I'll be real. I love this. You are kinda like a superhero. All you need is to wear brightly colored spandex and you will be a true superhero. My pay is a bright orange Speedo, lab goggles, safety vest, and fingerless gloves. Turtles. If anyone wants a good just basic idea on how this will save the public money, just remember how much the Hep C cure costs or a lifetime of HIV management. Hep treatment is like 60-70k CAD plus surrounding medical fees. It's easy to understand how it can get expensive. We have them in Canada and they are an effective means of harm reduction. Not only do they provide people with clean injecting equipment and intervene in case of overdose, they also lead to increased use of detoxification services. I'm not a fully qualified medical professional yet, but I can definitely see the need for services like this. It's not something I necessarily want to go into. I'm leaning towards specializing in emergency medicine. Harm reduction strategies like supervised injection facilities would probably lead to a reduction in emergency department visits for drug-related problems. They are also cheaper to run than to treat the infections they prevent. It's a shame it always boils down to the economic cost or benefit. I mean, yes, it's cheaper. But it's also more humane. It's the right thing to do, or at least the most right thing to do, in a terrible situation. I agreed, but it's my argument for the drug addicts are terrible crowd. Saves money and is more compassionate is hard to argue against. Actually, I'd hold back the compassionate part if that's who you're trying to convince. I've lost more than one compromise in debates because the thought of helping someone who they think deserves to suffer overrides even their potential financial gains. Amsterdam. WMD. WMD right Kaya. Pandemic. Noisy comment. Definitely heard this in my head as I read it. Public health worker here. What everyone is missing is that it is a harm reduction method. No, it's not ideal, but it's going to happen whether or not we like it to or not. So it's better that they do it in a safer, sterile environment. I recommend you all to read High Price by Carl Hart. A lot of you have strong misconceptions about addiction and the role of social aspects like community play in addiction. Also, welcome to public health. There is no perfect intervention that will solve all problems. People are too complex for that. They are a good idea in hindsight, but in saying that, I have seen what happens around the surrounding areas. It is a massive downside to them is that there isn't enough rooms in the one in my area, which causes one major issue which leads to other issues. The issue being that people go there and have trouble waiting to have their hit, so they are having their hit in the car park and surrounding areas, which is in plain sight of other businesses and school kids in the area. Hence the next part of my story. There are people, drug dealers, who prey on these people with the knowledge that they will be impatient and are selling the drugs to them in plain sight, which once again is right in plain sight of above mentioned areas. As a result, it is painting parts of the area in a bad light and is slowly decaying the businesses who have become fed up. People are coming across from all parts of the state to the safe injecting route, and there simply isn't a big enough facility to deal with the amount of people that come. For what it's worth, the proposed site is in Kensington and Philly, and Kensington is currently overrun with drug dealers and people whacked out. Kenzos are hating this site proposal, but completely ignoring the fact that they can't get off the subway without tripping over 16 people slumped over on the steps and needles falling from the L. In keeping with the original question, I personally would not want to have the job. It would fundamentally alter the way I currently practice, and this far into my career I don't think it would be safe for me to perform this particular job. I do see the value in the service, but it will take a very specific person to do the job. You want someone that not only knows how to monitor and reverse the narcotics as needed, but also someone that knows the difference between someone just being really high or actually dying. If the staff just goes around reversing all the intoxication, then nobody will use the space at all. It sounds like a pretty miserable job for a trained medical professional. even compared to other work, and probably not great for career development. These how would you feel about posts need to stop on the sub. There's basically two answers possible. One will get upvoted for being what Reddit agrees with, and the other downvoted. And 99% of comments aren't answers to the question because the person isn't a medical professional. I am an RN and I would work at this type of job, sure, if the pay was comparable to similar jobs. I believe these people need help. They will be using no matter what. At least there is less chance they will die at a place like this, and I would imagine the facility would provide resources to people who are ready to get clean. Why is this considered but not free rehab? Why should the taxpayers pay for it to help destroy their lives? We are focusing on helping people in the wrong way here. I'm a medic in Philly. Drive down a mile-long stretch of Kensington Ave and you will see at least one person actively shooting up with a needle in their arm. Something needs to be done. I don't know if this is the solution, but we need to do something. I'd rather have this done and fail rather than not do anything at all and continue watching my city succumb to this epidemic. Philly nurse here, I agree. For anyone who hasn't been to Philadelphia, it must be hard to imagine the sheer magnitude of this crisis in our streets, but once you see it, you can't just do nothing.